All right, welcome back to The Ride. It's Coach Q, and I've got a couple quick updates for you up front. One, this episode is with Dan Arestia. He is one of the top journalists and media personalities covering the space right now. He works with Prep Lacrosse, Inside Lacrosse, New England Lacrosse Journal. He is a media member, a voting media member for the Top 20 Inside Lacrosse poll. He voted on the top 50 players incoming for the 2026 season. So we had a really great conversation on all of that. We touched on the first week of games here, a lot of them getting postponed or canceled. So keep that in mind when you're listening to this. But also the quick update is we are going to be starting a live show. So that live show is going to be on Saturday at 9 a.m. That is going to be with Dan. And then I'm going to do that same show. It's called Through the Box Live on Tuesdays with Lax Reference. And those are going to be some awesome shows, hopefully covering the week of games and then recapping and looking forward to the following week's game. So as always, hopefully you find some value in it and enjoy the ride. All right, Dan, welcome to The Ride. Happy to have you, sir. We are sitting at the eve of the lacrosse season. This episode should come out right before the games start here. I'm really excited to be talking to you because of your knowledge and how you cover the sport, man. It's really awesome. But I'm excited. I hope you're excited. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here. Pumped to be talking lax in a regular season game week. Like we got ball coming. I don't care how much snow we got all over America this week. We're playing meaningful regular season games this weekend.
The South didn't get hit at all. So, well, I guess parts of the South that we're going to get all of those inches you have now. We didn't get hit at all. We got rain. So some of us are just hanging out, no snow.
I'm looking at about almost 1.5 feet out my window right now. So we got plenty here in Connecticut.
Awesome, man. Well, look, this is the first time I'm meeting you, but I'm a real big fan of your work. Stixin is definitely something that is a great resource for people, and you do a ton of different work across different media platforms. X is another one that once we get into the meat of the episode, I'm interested in how you're viewing that, because a lot of people that cover lacrosse, they're on maybe Instagram or some of these others. You're over there delivering the hard-hitting news on X. But let's start with the first question here. This is going to be a large debate maybe amongst people, but I saw that you compiled a great first week schedule for us. I appreciate you doing that. You were covering the fall schedule and all that too. Is it week 0 or is it week 1?
So, I mean, everybody else says week 0. To me, it's week 1. Like, you don't start at 0. To me, suggests it's like not a real week, or like it's somehow less than the other weeks. It's week 1, man. Like this is the first week. The first one. The 1 week,
Yeah.
So like, to me, it's I say week 1, kind of week 0. I don't know. Like, the vernacular across the sport seems to be it's week 0, but I never understood in any sport. Football does it too. Like college football calls it week 0 too. I think it's called people say week 0 because I guess so few is the way you would say it. So few teams are playing. Like, it's not like you've got the full complement of everybody going, but you won't have the full complement of everybody going for a while because the Ivies don't start until after everybody else anyway. So that's like. Fair.
So do we wait for the Ivies to call it week 1?
And it's like, exactly. I was going to say, is Valentine's Day week 1 because that's when you have everybody because the Ivies start? I don't know. But.
Dang. This is a grind my gears segment, but we're going to rock and roll, man. Hey, I was talking to Kark before, probably 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about the change of schedule, right? Like the change in calendar from December to January, especially for him. He's covering football, so the change is really great for him because he says, this is it. This is lacrosse season. But you cover the entire sport. I mean, your fall, winter, everything. You're covering the NLL. How is the run up to the season for you? Like, does it change your scheduling or just like work habits from December to January?
Work habits for sure. I cover the NLL a little bit, but it's definitely like I don't mean this as a slight to them or anything. It's just the discipline of the sport that I've spent the least amount of time around or watching. Like, I never played it, I never coached it, I never really touched indoor lacrosse until recent years when I've watched a lot more of it and I've started to like it more. So I've started trying to offer more in the way of mostly like opinions and just kind of fun stuff rather than offering maybe any kind of legitimate expertise. But I consider my lacrosse year, my lacrosse schedule is basically from the start of like fall ball and that beginning of indoor season. So like October, November-ish that carries me into the start of college season, which is when I tend to do the most stuff. It's when I have the most podcast episodes coming and a lot of written content there. And then that takes me into the PLL season, because that'll start, now they actually are going to overlap, but, that would take me to Memorial Day for college, right into PLL training camp, a week 1 for them. And then that runs through usually, early mid-September. Now it's going to be late September. So that gap between PLL championship game and the start of NLL training camp, 4, maybe 5 weeks later, is my dead area, is when I really try and take a breather. But otherwise, yeah, I'm doing lacrosse basically 11 months a year. There's always, I say it all the time, if there's a game near me, I'm probably going to be there, probably going to be watching it, need to go see it. I just junkie for it.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people get over to these scrimmages, so I'm interested as we roll into the season. I want to get some of the scrimmages that you were at. Let's talk about some of those teams. But before we do that, just ending on this scheduling piece, me and Kark also got into a little bit of a conversation about the PLL moving the schedule and all that stuff. I think we were actually talking about it, and then a day later they said, "Oh, we've got a 2-week move back here. We're going to be competing with the NCAA." What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, the official word is that the games are going to start May 9th, which is the first, or the weekend of May 9th, which is it's tricky because it's the first weekend of the NCAA tournament for D1 men. And then of course we're back to having an overlap with the NLL, with the Indoor Pro League. So because of that, you are looking at a sizable list of guys who may or may not be available. You have the usual slate of NLL guys who won't be able to play. And that depends a lot maybe on how good or not good their NLL team is. If they miss the playoffs, obviously it's not going to be as impactful. Brendan O'Neill's playing for the Wings, but the Wings aren't looking too good. So if they miss the playoffs, I guess no harm done. It sucks, for Brennan, because he's going to have to go straight from one to the other, no break. And it's tough. It's tough on these guys' bodies, but there's a lot of guys who play both indoor and outdoor. So you're looking at the possibility of missing, a whole lot of guys who are trying to win an NLL championship. And then you have another category of guys who are the college coaches, right? You have, if BU gets it done and wins the Patriot League, Jack Rowlett's coaching that weekend. He's not playing for the Chaos, and that's a DPOY level guy who's not going to be there. Ryder Garnsey is coaching at Notre Dame. I don't know if it's all that weak of a limb to go out on to say Notre Dame's probably going to be playing in that tournament weekend. So are the Redwoods going to be without Ryder Garnsey? Logan Wisnauskas coaches at Brown. Jack Posey coaches at High Point. The list goes on and on with all these guys who coach. And I'm just giving you the D1 guys. There's D2, exactly. D3 guys up and down the list who are going to be in NCAA tournament mode. So we've had the overlap in the past with the PLL and the NLL, where it really felt like it impacted one team. You know what I mean? The Chaos would lose their entire roster because everybody was still playing for the Bandits, and they would roll out this team of no disparagement to these guys, but replacement guys, right? Guys you knew would play for a couple weeks and then would probably get, released or go to a backup role once the Stars came back. But that could be much more widespread, I guess, as you look across the league and at how many guys are playing box or how many guys are coaching. And you could be looking at, as opposed to just a replacement heavy Chaos, a couple of teams that might be kind of replacement heavy, depending on how the NLL shakes out and college goes. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to try and deal with. And the picture gets clearer as the day gets closer, obviously, and who's going to be there and who isn't. But it's certainly a challenge to face.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg, right? We want to see the PLL be successful and be able to kind of stand alone. But I mean, these college coaches are not going to quit their jobs in college coaching unless they get paid whatever that amount is for the PLL. But
right.
How do you do that when the PLL is not surfacing the best players because of the coaches? It's round and round you go.
It's tricky. Yeah. I know. And I think sooner or later, basically, I think the Band-Aid just kind of comes off. And the PLL says to guys, look, if you're doing this, you're doing this, and Ooh. we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna, the comparison I would give you is the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. When that league launched, they told their players, or they told the players interested in joining the league, if you're doing this, you're doing this. and you're going to live in the market of your team. Like, we're not going to make it an option for you. Like, you're going to live there. The league said, hey, we'll give you a housing stipend and we'll help you find a place and all that. It's not, nobody's living like a super glamorous lifestyle, but it was how they did it. The players got a housing stipend and they, said, all right, you have to do this. You don't have another job. You're a pro women's soccer player. We're going to help you find a place to live. You're living in the market, and we'll get you opportunities to make money outside of your salary and all that. And even doing all that, like, that's a tough pill to swallow. And the league, I think, had to deal with the fact that there were like college All-Americans who were like, nah, I'm going to join the workforce and, start my life and be done with soccer rather than trying to live like that. And it's a tough Band-Aid to rip off, man. It really is. But that league has flourished since. They have a dynamite media deal. Trinity Rodman signed a deal for $2 million, this past week. So sooner or later, I think the Band-Aid kind of comes off, and you tell guys, like, we are it. This is the pro sport. And if you're doing this, you're doing this. And to your point, it becomes a lot easier when the money is such that you don't have to do much else.
Yeah.
For some guys, it's maybe starting to be a little more possible for more guys than it used to be, I guess. This free agency period, Brian Costabile got an offer from a team that would have paid him $70,000 a year just to play lacrosse. That's it. $70,000 a year for 3 years. And if you take that, and that on its own, it's not nothing, but it's not enough probably for a guy, who's getting ready to, have kids and all that stuff, to live on. But you take that and look, there's now bonuses for making the playoffs. There's bonuses for winning the title. There's bonuses for making the championship series and a bonus for winning it. There's opportunities to work camps and all this other stuff for them. And you can kind of piece it together for some of these guys.
Okay, let's sandwich this episode here because I want to come back to the PLL at the end of the episode. NCAA starting, PLL starting, whenever they are. And let's jump in. You covered some of these fall scrimmages, and some of these scrimmages, I believe, even preseason here as we were sitting in January. What games did you go to? Who impressed you? What would shock people if they heard it because maybe they're not following the scrimmage kind of circuit right now before the season started?
I guess the one that's freshest in my mind is obviously the one I was at most recently. I went and saw Fairfield scrimmage Villanova just a few days ago, just before the weekend. They moved it to during the week because of the snowstorm and everything. But I wanted to go see Fairfield in person. I really, they're first of all down the street from me, and second of all, like, they were a fun team to watch last year and a good story. And it felt good to me, to have said early in the year, like, I think they can beat some people. They can be dangerous. And they proved to be, kind of dangerous. But that's a team that's got some serious weapons. You know what I mean? And Towson's going to be the favorite in the CAA. But if Fairfield pushes them a little bit, I won't be surprised. I think it's an Andrew Baxter coach team. So when you go watch them play, the ride's going to be good. And their ride, even it's a scrimmage in January, their ride looked like it was in midseason form. Like, they had the whole bench into it. Guys knew where they were going, all the jumps, and they must have caused Villanova to commit, 7 turnovers on the ride over the course of the game. And I think 1 or 2 of those became goals. And like, if you watch an Andrew Baxter team, they're going to ride like hell. And Fairfield has since he got there. When Baxter was at Yale, that team's ride was insane. It helped them get to a national championship. So, I was very much saw what I would expected in that regard. The offense for everybody, look, it's still probably going to be it's not going to be bad, but it's going to be, it's probably going to be fairly basic, right? You've done like some install, you kind of know what's going on, but like complicated wrinkles that are team specific, there was nothing prepared for Villanova that week. You know what I mean? This is what we're going to try and do and build our offense from. So you saw a lot of good stuff from them. For Villanova, I guess the wrinkle or the stuff that I saw from them that I thought was interesting was how much they tried to play 5v5. So whenever they did clear or off of face-offs, or, they have Jake Melchione at LSM, who's, an All-American level player, who pushes in transition a lot. And if he would wind up on the offensive end, you would hear the Nova sideline yell all the time, Melk, hang him. And he would do that thing where he goes to the far side of the field and just stands between the box and the midfield line. And you can't just sub, because he'll run back into the offense and he'll be part of it and you'll play 6-on-5 and Nova scores. And you can't kind of just leave him alone because he'll get the ball and he'll step into one from range. So, like, it creates a 5v5 game. And Villanova did that a lot. They really looked to do that a lot. And even,
did they create any scoring opportunities on that?
They created opportunities in the first quarter a little bit. They had some chances out of it. Owen Hirsch made some nice saves. A lot of their goals in the game came once you were into like a ones versus twos or twos versus twos thing. Mm-hmm. Ones on ones, I thought Fairfield was the better team. Villanova looked like they weren't quite as sharp, didn't execute quite as well. Making more mistakes. Again, the ride was a problem for them, but Villanova looking to play as much 5v5 as they did, I would say, definitely was a surprise to me.
Okay, let's jump into kind of the wider games here, wider slate of games. You do a lot of work, obviously, on the media side. One of the things I was looking at was your involvement in the top 50 for Inside Lacrosse. Are you involved in the poll on the team side as well?
Yeah, so okay. I do the top 50 for them. They asked me to do the top 50, I should say, and then I'm a media member who votes in the preseason All-Americans and the weekly ballot.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll just take this, I guess. Where do I want to start? Flip a coin, right? But let's talk about the players. It might be a little bit easier to kind of move our way into the teams, but let's talk about the players. You got the top 50 there. I'm interested in maybe some, I don't want to say feedback, but what are some of the placements of the players that you felt got the most kind of public backlash or got the most kind of heated debate around them? I did see Spallina was at 1. Heavily defensive top 10, which is nice. I'm a defensive coach. I love to see it, but what do you think?
So for me, when I sat down to do it, you kind of sit down and just make your like 1 to 50 with blank lines. And I immediately, it took me 2 seconds. I put Sean Light at number 1. I was just like, yeah, Sean Light, number 1. And then at number 2, I had texted Terry Foy as I was doing it. I was like, I got to spot number 2 before I was like, I'm not sure what I want to do here. So like that was as far as I made it. But so Sean Light at 1 was easy for me.
Yeah.
I think, look, he won a Schmeiser last year. I think the kid, there's a chance he wins 3 Schmeiser awards, which is like, you're borderline unprecedented, very close to being unprecedented. Winning 2 puts you in like extremely rare company. And I think he changes the way an offense plays because he's going to erase somebody. But, man, he's also such a good off-ball defender and such a good communicator. And if you look at, like, the 2016 Notre Dame defense, right, you had, like, Landis and Eppel and Klaesner. Like, all had their own things that they were great at with coverage, with communication, with guys like that. Like, you roll those guys together to get a Sean Light. Like, that's how good he is. That really is how good he is.
Does he have a hole in his game?
I don't see one with him. I really don't. I really think he covers as good as anybody, and I think off the ball he doesn't screw up ever. So I think I have said before, I think if he could have, like, if this was a sport where you leave college early to go in the draft, whatever year he left, he would probably be the number 1 pick. So I had him at number 1. Let me think about my list.
It's crazy that the defenders are so like, I feel like I've never even heard Sean Light talk, like this is just a media thing that you deal with lacrosse, but like Will Schaller and Sean Light, are they personalities? I don't know. Are they? Do you know?
I think Sean Light's got some personality to him.
Okay.
You catch some of it sometimes when he's doing like stuff for Team USA, because the USA lacks social media accounts. Will usually do like the guys are walking out to the field or off the field and you ask them a question, they give you, silly, one of those kind of things. Sean Light's usually good for some content out of those. So I think he's got some personality to him. Sometimes the Notre Dame guys, even though they have a ton of personality, you don't get to like see it, or it's I don't know, it's just part of the Notre Dame thing, I guess. Yeah, all business there. So, I think he's got some, but I had Will Schaller up there in my list too. Yeah, it's like another guy who's one of the best defensemen in America, and it's going to cornerstone a Maryland team that's got title aspirations. I think my top 4 was in some order: Light 1, and then it was like the other 4 were, Spallina, Schaller, and Aiden McGuire, I think were my next couple. So I wasn't too far off from there. I did have some guys, I guess I had no problem with Spallina at 1 for anybody who did that. I had some guys that I voted for that didn't appear on the list, or that didn't actually make the list. So I voted for Lucas Littlejohn, the attackman from Richmond. I put in the top 50. I put Julian Radosic, the Fairfield defenseman, in the top 50. I put Alex Marinier at Ohio State in there. I put Charlie Cave at Brown. I think you want to stick with the defensive guys. I think he's one of the better ones. And then I think I snuck Henry Dodge in there too. I think I put him near the bottom of the list too. He's at Maryland now. Obviously, he was like the face-off prize in the portal, but
Sure.
I had all those guys ranked, and they didn't make the actual list. And then I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
The guys, there were some guys that I did not vote for that did make the list. This is always like the first thing I go and look for, but I didn't vote for Carden Stoller in the top 50, the Rutgers netminder. I didn't vote for Richard Checo in there. It's basically just like a list of guys who I have at 51. You know what I mean? Like it's
Gotcha.
you
Honorable
get to guys
mention.
eventually that are tough. And
Well-
then I always try and get a guy in there. I got Kyle Lewis in there. I think in the final version I turned in, I have Kyle Lewis from Adelphi in the top
Nice.
50 because he's a freak, man.
D2 love.
He's a freak.
So I got a couple things based on what you're saying. One, the committee, whoever was doing the polling here, they put Schaller above Sean Light. So Sean didn't even get 2; he got 3. So I'm with you, man. I'm hurt.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about this, but this is more related to team, but you mentioned it with Will Schaller and the aspirations that Maryland have. Because I come into the season and I'm like, oh my God, I think I have rose-colored glasses. Because I'm like, this is the most competitive season that we could see. But I think there's another part of me that's like, holy shit, maybe you're just amped because it's week 0 and Maryland is just going to just run roughshod and that it's just their season. It does feel like that to me, that there's an avenue for that.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. It feels very open. I think, IL had talked about it, and done some stuff about it, but it feels like a wide open season, man, where a lot of teams could make it there. I used to do this exercise with Donville, but it was like, start going down the top 20 and see how far you can get before you're convinced that the team you're looking at won't make the Final Four. And
You made it all the way to 20 last season?
No, we never made it all the way to 20, but it was like, here's this week's top 20. All right, can you get to 10 before you're like, that team's not going to the Final Four? Can you get to 8? Can you get to 12? How far can you go? And this feels like one of those years where, at least in the early going, that you're going to be able to make it a good ways down that list.
Let's see. Let's see if you can. Maryland, Princeton, Syracuse, Cornell. That's fine.
Won't be shocked by any of them.
Yeah, Georgetown, North Carolina, Penn State, Notre Dame. Anything?
Sure.
Yeah.
All could be
Richmond-
Final Four teams.
Richmond, Ohio State, Duke, Army.
Army's maybe where it hits you. We're like, can they make the Final Four? Because their path is always tricky. Where it's like they have to win the Patriot League. They're like, we're gonna have the same Army discussion again this year. I can already feel it. Where they're gonna lose a Patriot League regular season game or like some weird regular season losses, and then they're gonna have to figure it out with a strength of schedule that might not be great and like all that kind of stuff. But Army's maybe where you get to where you're just like, I don't know if they can do it. I don't know if they can do it against those first 11. But that's 11 teams already where you're just like, yeah, they could be in the Final Four. Like, that's insane.
Man, I'm excited to watch Richmond. I mean, not only because they're right down the road and I get to actually watch them in UVA play, but it's just to see them follow up on what could have been they got real close to beating Cornell. They were the closest to it, in my opinion.
I think if you take their performance from the course of the year with the 2 games they played against Cornell and their performance in the tournament and all of that stuff, I was talking to other people who were voters in the media poll who, after the championship, Cornell has won it. We were legitimately asking ourselves, is it insane to put Richmond 2? Would it be crazy to put Richmond 2? To look at what Cornell did to everybody else and be like, man, they were 1 goal better than Richmond. And like Richmond gave them hell on more than one occasion. And like nobody wanted a piece of Richmond at the end of the year. Like to me, it would not have been crazy to put Richmond 2 in the final poll after last season.
I'm looking at the Sticks in Lacrosse blog here that you run and you do a great job of. You're doing a kind of preseason, basically a favorite runner-up and dark horse for every conference. Everyone loves to talk about the ACC. I've got it sitting in front of me. Syracuse, North Carolina, and the dark horse would be Virginia. So the favorite, Syracuse, runner-up, North Carolina, dark horse, Virginia. I want to quickly touch on Syracuse here. Like, what's the thing that could trip them up, like, the most? Because everyone's kind of pegged them now. It's Spallina's final year. He's going to make a run. What could throw a wrench in there?
The weight of expectation. I don't know. Like, this is a year for them where it's like, you guys better put a banner up there, man. I don't know. I don't think there's any result other than that will be acceptable for that team, for those fans. Like, this is that golden recruiting class that's highlighted by Joey Spallina in their senior year there, needing to get done. But like, if you're looking for like what on the field will maybe hang them up, like you want to make sure that they've got short stick D midfield depth. That's always the thing that it's like, it's not a coincidence that teams that have a ton of that are always there in like the last 8 Final Four. Like, those teams are always deep in the midfield, particularly with D midfielders and two-way guys. Like, you have to have those kind of horses. And as good as Syracuse can be, I think, particularly in the 6-on-6 at both ends, like with their close defense is great. You know, their attack is obviously like supernatural good. Midfield depth is where you kind of want to make sure that they have what it takes. Like, if they have a bad injury to a midfielder in week 4, like, who's going to be the guy there to step in?
Yeah. Hiltz isn't there anymore, is he? Yeah, I mean, left the attack.
Hiltz is there, and then obviously the horrible news about Trey Deer, where Trey's not going to be able to play this season. So, Hobart and Syracuse scrimmaged, I think it was last week, and I didn't see it, but I was talking to folks who'd gotten a chance to watch it, and it sounded like Q's won the first quarter of starters on starters like 9-1, and it was like 12-1 in the second quarter when people started pulling it back a little bit and getting the other guys through. So, look, they're going to score goals. Like, they're going to find ways to score goals. You know, Michael Leo, Finn Thompson, Joey. There's multiple guys who are going to be PLL draft picks, potentially multiple first-round draft picks. So, like, the talent on the offense is going to be there. And at close defense and in goal, like, they feel good. Johnny Mullen's going to be good facing off. You just want to make sure, it's always to me about, do you have short stick D midfield depth? Do you have a second line of midfielders that isn't just like out there so the first line can catch their breath? It's guys out there who can actually score. You know what I mean? You need to make sure you have that.
Yeah, I mean, talking about scoring, and I don't want to spend too much time on the ACC here, but I just enjoy watching Owen Duffy play. I just think of fun. It's fun when North Carolina is good at lacrosse. It just is. It's a better college season, and they're going to be right up in there. Like, you have them as the runner-up for the ACC. Give me your thoughts.
I think Owen Duffy is, I would agree, is one of my favorite players to watch. Like, if you were to do the league pass rankings, like ranking teams not by how good they are, but the team you want to make sure is on the TV when they're playing is ranked the first. North Carolina's up there because you get Duffy is maybe the best pure dodger in the country. I'd put him up there with like a Ryan Goldstein as guys who can just flat out shake somebody in the blink of an eye. And then for North Carolina, you get to pair him with Petro, who just shoots the absolute hell out of the ball. So you get a guy who's like, he's going to separate, he's going to draw a slide, he's going to do it with his head up, basically at will against everybody. And then somewhere else out there is somebody with their stick up who can shoot the absolute hell out of the ball like Petro can. So it's a very fun team to watch from that regard. I will say my thing with Carolina is, and it's the same thing I said kind of about them last year. I even wrote like a thing about it. The percentage of shots that those two guys take of their team shots is outsizedly large compared to other teams that are like, also kind of in that tier of team. Sure. So I don't think you can play and win like NCAA tournament Final Four kind of games playing 2-on-6. You're going to beat some teams in the regular season. You're going to do okay. But when a push comes to shove, I don't think you can win. You can play your way to a title playing 2-on-6. So they've got the pieces, right? Ty English is great. There was a story today about how their entire second line midfielder is going to be all freshmen. It's going to be all, Gary Merrill and Rayo. And it's like it's a special recruiting class that they have there, but I don't think you can win playing 2-on-6. So you want to see more depth from them on the offensive side.
Yeah, that top heavy nature is tough in the postseason, man. Especially when games like start getting paired closer together, it's tough.
Yeah.
I've got the list that I would really want to kind of go through some other conferences, but before that, I do want to kind of hone in on this week, right? We're like starting to talk about teams and expectations. It is week 1, not week 0. What do we have on slate here? High Point Navy kind of sticks out to me as an interesting one right away. Richmond, Maryland. I mean, Jesus, that's might be that's a top 5 matchup right off the bat. But what do we got? What do you think?
I think Richmond, Maryland is obviously going to be the game of the weekend for folks. People are going to look to see statements from kind of both of them. For Maryland, it's like, okay, everybody thinks you're the best. Let's see you play like it against a good team in the first week. Let's see how good you look. And with Maryland, you want to see how the portal guys fit in. Tillman is great in the portal. He always finds kind of, he doesn't always make the splash portal guy. He usually just finds the right guys for his team. Like last year, look, Bryce Ford wasn't a giant splash name in the portal, right? Came from Fairfield, but Bryce Ford had been a captain for like 2 or 3 years at Fairfield, goes to Maryland, plays his role, fits in, and is an impact guy for them. So this year he kind of did do the splash thing, right? He goes and gets Leo Johnson, Chris Lyons from Yale. He's got Mikey Alexander from Yale. He gets Henry Dodge. So he's got like kind of some of the big splash names there, but you want to see those guys kind of fit in and how the offense works with them in it. And then the High Point Navy game for sure. I think Navy is a team. In that article, I made Navy my totally disrespected dark horse of the Patriot League because I really think they have a pretty solid team, man. And I think they it sounds like in the scrimmage world they played Navy or they played UVA pretty tight over the weekend. So they're a talented team. They're going to be well coached. Like it's a good squad. So Navy's fun to watch. And then High Point, I think High Point has an All-American and a potential pro facing off in Luca Accardo, who's awesome. Mm-hmm. So I think High Point's a team that could, winning the A10 is tough because they share it with Richmond, but they're not a pushover by any means.
Yeah, Jacksonville Rutgers as well kind of sticks out to me. I like Jacksonville's kind of underdog feel that they always have every year with Coach Galloway, and they're always pulling an upset off and all of that.
Yeah,
so
they're playing that game in Naples, so that's kind of like a cool neutral site Naples, Florida game for them. And Jacksonville for sure. Like, if you want to find some fun Canadians to watch, man, watch that game. Aaron Taguri's in that game. He was the Defender of the Year of the OJLL, and he's Team Canada defenseman. He's awesome. Lucas Fraser is Jacksonville's LSM. If you watched him play at the Hill Academy, he's one of those poles that stayed on for Man Up. Like he's a fun guy like that. So Jacksonville's got some players. Dalen John Hill is really good. A lot of good fun talent in Jacksonville.
How do you mix covering college, PLL, NLL with covering the high school game, which could be a job in and of itself?
Well, when it comes to the high school stuff, I don't have as much time for it, so I tend to stick to kind of what's in my backyard, right? So I'm lucky in that I live in a place where high school lacrosse is super competitive and there's a lot of really high-end talent, so that can kind of feed the way I can kind of cover the college game. I live 25 minutes or so from Brunswick, so and they're always, like a top 5 team in the country. You can go down there and catch some of those kids. The public school lacrosse here is great with Darien, New Canaan, Staples, Wilton. There's a lot of really good talent here. And, Brunswick tends to host some good teams from really across the country, and the prep lacrosse, or they call it prep nationals, but it's lax.com puts on prep nationals here, which hosts, 4 teams that are usually like Brunswick, Lawrenceville, Salisbury, and Deerfield, or, some kind of crew like that's going to be stacked. So I'm lucky in that there's always good lacrosse getting played around me. I get to go to a couple of Ridgefield games this year and see Chris Colsey a few times, which I'm pumped for. So, it's easy to just kind of go and sit in the stands for those and just enjoy watching the future.
Yeah, I love that. All right, we might be able to jump right back into some high school recruiting processes and stuff like that here. We got you about 30 more minutes. Any last games from this week 1 that we want to kind of mention as being highlighted?
Georgetown Loyola is in there. And, that game last year was a game where everybody thought Georgetown would romp, and they didn't. And Loyola, look, had I think, I'm not, again, trying to badmouth the program, but I think last year might have been their worst year ever. I think they had a stretch of losing whatever it was, 7 straight, 8 straight, something gross. But look, the Hounds are a proud program, and it's a good coaching staff. I think Minikis is a really, really good attackman, and they have some good talent and good players there. Georgetown's going to be the favorite in the Big East, and they of course got 2 of the best players in the portal and in the Connor brothers. So it's a tall task, but just given the way that game has gone in recent years, I'm not going to assume that Georgetown is just going to roll by them or Loyola is going to show up and get blown out. It might happen, but it's not like what I would necessarily expect to see right out of the gate.
Got it. A team right down the road in Hopkins, do they kind of have a return of relevance at all, or feels like they're just left out of this combo?
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Robert Morris, who's talented, and it's funny that it's a January 31st game. I was talking about this with Devitt today. It's the first time Hopkins has played a game in January ever, and we were like laughing about like, what are we doing? How are we playing so early? It's January. We have regular season games. Yeah. And we were like, yeah, Hopkins is playing for the first time in January. They've been playing lacrosse since the 1800s there. This is the first time it's happened. So, to your question, when I submitted my preseason top 20, I didn't rank Hopkins. So I'm not super high on Hopkins. I know they have like a ton of guys back, but like the ton of guys they have back didn't do all that great last year, right? So like, are we putting it on freshmen like Ollie Nolting, who sounds like he's been doing great in the preseason and all that? I don't know. It feels aggressive. So it's a team that I kind of want to see something from, I guess, before I start ranking them. I don't know. I'm not particularly high on them coming into the year. On like a team level, there's individual players I think are great. Like we all know Quentin Kilrain is great. We know Matt Collison can be great. There's a lot of really good players on that team. You just want to see them match talent to results.
Yeah. We started the episode kind of joking about the PLL schedule, and now we're into the college schedule, kind of making fun of that as well. Is there like a magic wand thing that would make sense for maybe magic wands, because that implies it's not a reality? Is there some kind of fix that feels plausible in the next 5 years with college lacrosse, moving it back a little bit?
I mean, part of me thinks that some of it is tricky in that, look, the season's always going to end there on Memorial Day weekend, and so you have like a window when you can get these games in, where you can play. And there's obviously like, look, NCAA rules aside about how often you can play and practice and all that kind of stuff. Playing in January, yeah, it's weird and there's snow on the ground and all that. But, if we have these opportunities to get more games in and have teams improve their schedules and stuff like that, I don't necessarily hate it. And some of it is like a fun strength of schedule thing. A tricky part of it is that, like, if Richmond beats Maryland this weekend, and then we're having a tournament resume discussion in 4 months from now, or 3 months from now, I should say, we're going to be like, Maryland lost to Richmond, but we're also going to do that thing where we're like, yeah, but it was January. It was week 1, totally different team now. So it's like the game counts, but does it really count? Because it's not going to count in our people's minds down the road, doing that whole song and dance. So, you want to make sure as the season is spread out that we are mindful of recency bias as we evaluate talent.
Yeah, I love that point that you made about bias later in the season and the schedule. Boston playing Syracuse. Speaking of Jack Rowlett, his defense going up against Syracuse, that'll be an interesting one. And then Towson playing North Carolina. These are good games.
Yeah, BU is like the Patriot League. I think everybody kind of knows they're not going to get the 2 teams in. Like we try and come up with the scenarios for it, frequently. But BU is a team that's probably got eyes on winning the Patriot League. Tim Shanahan is a special player for that Terrier team, man. He looked really great at U20s for Team USA. He was a guy who got there and wasn't considered a top 100 recruit coming in, And I think finished the year, his freshman year, and you could make a case he was one of the best freshmen in the country. He was the Patriot League Rookie of the Year. Like he's a dynamic player who can do it all for them, from X, from wings as an attackman. So Syracuse, of course, is going to look there. It's the Dome in their home opener. You know what I mean? Like it's about as tough of an environment as you can try and go to for the opening game on the road. So BU's got the work cut out for him, but certainly one worth watching. And then Towson's got Mikey Weishar, man. He alone is a player worth watching. He's going to be a top 2, top 3 PLL pick. He's going to be the guy who Towson looks to lead them to winning the CAA and an NCAA tournament berth. So that's a team that's got, they lose a guy like Chop Gallagher, who I think is valuable to them, but Fitzpatrick is back on offense, who was dynamite goal scorer as a freshman. So there's other guys around Weishar who can kind of be complimentary. He'll probably be playing attack because I think Coach Nadelin subscribes to that idea of your best player needs to be on the field like 100% of the time. I think he's a more natural midfielder, but look, he's so talented and he's so dynamic as a Dodger that he can play anywhere.
Yeah, I really like that point you're making. I do want to get back into this breakdown here, but you mentioned on X that Inside Lacrosse had given the rankings of kind of everyone that filled out that poll, and you were able to see kind of the disparity where some teams were ranked maybe really high and then someone else put them really low. What teams had the widest disparity when it came to that poll?
So number one, I love that IL started doing that. It'll be really dicey if they start putting names on it too. Like here's who voted them the absolute lowest.
Let's do it.
I think the widest I saw was Penn State. I think Penn State's highest vote was 3rd, and somebody had them at 19. So a difference of 16 spots for the Nets was, I think, as big as it got. Somebody had Carolina. Carolina got a first place vote, and somebody else had them at 9th, which was low. I immediately started being like, am I responsible for any of these highest or lowest votes? And I don't think I was. There were a couple of like the not ranked votes that I think responsible for. Hopkins and Michigan I didn't rank, but I think the biggest one was Penn State. I think.
Got it.
Maryland I think got. I don't think anybody had Maryland lower than 2. Maryland had 17 first place votes, and everybody else had them 2.
I really hope this just doesn't become the Maryland season. I know. I told you at the beginning. Hopefully, we don't get that.
They always play. Look, they're playing a dynamite schedule yet again. Like they're not. It's such an open year, and everybody's got so many weapons that it's not like they're gonna lose.
Yeah.
I mean, clip it if you want to. Maryland is going to lose a game this year. They're gonna lose a game.
I love Coach Connery and the work that he does, and I really appreciate Michigan's kind of rise from being a club program. So that's always one that I like follow really heavily, and just interested on why you left them out of the top 20.
They were my 21st team. Like if I got to do 21, I'd put Michigan next. Their highest vote had them at 10, and that feels crazy high to me. But they graduated a lot of weapons. They lost a lot of like really productive players. I think there's going to be kind of some opportunities for guys there to make a name for themselves. I think they look to me like a team that will build it from the back with Hunter Taylor and a couple of really good returning defensemen, guys like Mason Whitney, some really talented players. But I don't know if I trusted their offense enough yet to be like, am I sure they're better than like an Albany? I'm not 100% sure that they are. I think like, look, my 19 and 20 were Rutgers and Denver. If you want to tell me Michigan and Denver play today and Michigan wins, I'd be like, yeah, I can see it for sure. But that's just kind of like, to me, splitting hairs at the end of the poll kind of thing.
Got it. Everybody wants to talk Big Ten, ACC, and yet we always have to come back to the Ivies. The Ivies just are like, hey, remember us? We're just like the most successful league over the past whatever amount of years. Tell me a little bit about the Ivies.
They got the defending champ, right? They got Cornell. So to me, when I do these things, when I pick like a favorite or when I rank teams, I ranked Cornell number 1. When I do the preseason poll, it's like personal philosophy for me every year that you are, if you've got the crown, man, you get to wear it until somebody takes it from you. So if you are the defending national champion, you come into the season ranked 1. And when you lose, then we'll deal with who the new number one is, but you get to be number one if you're the defending champion. So, and I don't feel like that's even just like a thing that's that crazy. Cornell got number one votes other than me, and like they've got Ryan Goldstein, they've got Willem Firth, Jack Heskadden is back facing off. Like nobody's ever going to replace a CJ Kirst, but like Ryan Goldstein's probably going to be, I made him a preseason first team All-American. Like he's a ridiculously good attackman. So they're going to be a tough out. I think the team that people seem to really love in the Ivy this year is Princeton. Another team that kind of lost their dynamo on offense in Coulter Mackesy graduating, but like Cornell, returned just like a wealth of other guys. Nate Kabiri is awesome. Peter Bonanno, I think, really broke out in the NCAA tournament last year for Princeton, and in a larger role now as kind of a starting attackman for them. I think he could really, turn some heads. I think Chad Palumbo is one of the best, if not the best, midfielders in the country. He's going to be a guy who's like a two-league pro and all that. And then Ryan Croddick in net is a player I'm super high on. Going back to like the top 50 players, I think one of the biggest disparities in what the actual list was in mine was I had Ryan Croddick up in like the 20s, and I think he came in like the 40s. So I might just be higher on him than most, but I think he's an exceptional goalie. He's really, really good. So I think, Princeton's got it everywhere. Like they're going to be a team where you can't point to the spot. You're like, if you can do this, you can beat Princeton. Like they don't have one of those.
Yeah, Dan, you've been delivering the goods here. We've been talking teams, players as we're getting ready for the 2026 season. I've only got a couple questions left. I guess give me the most overrated team that is going to slip up, and give me the most underrated team that is maybe not even in the top 20 that has the opportunity to kind of shock people, right? Or it could be in that 20 range, but give me the two that you got.
Overrated team. I guess a way I could do this is a team that I ranked way lower than where they actually were in the top 20. But I would say, let's see. I had Georgetown down at like 9 in the poll, and they came in at 5. Their lowest vote was 11, so I'm not as down on them, I guess, as somebody else out there. But look, Georgetown's made the big portal splashes before, and it hasn't always translated into like rapid or immediate success. I'm speaking basically about the year that they got Tucker Dordovic in the portal, and that team kind of struggled for a little while to get used to him being there and having him work in with guys on that team like Haley and Bundy and the other weapons there. And by the time the tournament came around, they had sorted it out, and Dordovic had found the balance of like, it's my time to isolate and take over versus it's time for, a slower, more team offense based approach. But Georgetown would be a team where if they were to stumble or not be great early as they get kind of the things organized with the Haley or the Connor brothers, finding their footing in there and getting acclimated with everybody else, like it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of dropped an ugly one early or something like that. So I would say Georgetown maybe is a team that I think could slip a little bit. Teams that are out of the top 20 that I think could do some damage. I think Utah's pretty awesome, man. I think Utah's pretty good. Ryan Steins is a pro, and he is, for my money, the best player maybe in that entire conference. I think he's an All-American attackman he scored like 40-plus goals as a freshman. I think did it again as a sophomore. And then last year, as the guy who came back to them as like basically their top returning weapon, said, all right, I'll carry the ball, and had more assists than goals last year. So I think they've got the preseason conference player of the year on offense and defense. I think Utah could kind of romp through that ASUN conference and then be that team that's kind of the first round game that everyone's going to be like, you got to kind of watch Utah here.
Yeah. No, I like those points. Appreciate it. You mentioned offensive players that have to deal with this balance of being the star and also kind of sharing the load, right? Like when can we? CJ Kirst, great example of a guy who just knows how to do it. I mean, you watch him in these games and it was like seamless between when he decided it was time and also, kind of yielding to your other players. Helps when your other players are All-Americans and that stuff. But you know what? I've been really enjoyed watching CJ play in the box league because I'm getting more involved in the box league. You're certainly way beyond my kind of knowledge of it. and kind of coverage of it. But I really enjoy watching the field players play box, because I felt like, just from an American's perspective, it's always like, look at these box players coming into field and how cool they are. And then I watch the field players playing box. I'm like, look how cool these guys are. Like they're bringing a different type of skill set, which is much more isolation based. You see it when CJ or Brennan has the ball. It's like, it doesn't look like a normal box offense. I'm just interested on your thoughts on these guys playing in the NLL.
I think it's becoming almost table stakes if you're going to consider yourself a guy who's going to be an All-American in college, or a really high-level player in college, that you have to start getting that element of your game in order. Because you had Joey Spallina spent his summers in the OJLL. So did CJ. A guy like Ryan Colsey at UVA just won a Minto, right? With and you can see how much that's added to his ability in the outdoor game. You really, as a shooter and a scorer for Ryan, where he has like really become a serious weapon, and his game is really elevated to the tune where, like, early in his career at UVA, I would probably not have considered him a guy who would be a pro. And at this point, I think there are NLL GMs who are, and NLL leadership has asked me, like, is Ryan going to be draft eligible this year? Like, it's a guy we're interested in. So, players like that, there's rules about how many Americans each one of those OJLL teams or the out west, the BCJLL teams can have on them. But they're using those spots because they're Americans who want to go up there and play and do it. And if you're not doing that, then you're starting to maybe fall behind the guys that are, because they're going to have this extra element to their game. They're going to just they're going to set better picks than you. They're going to run a better, pick and slip than you. They're probably going to be better shooters and better handlers of the ball than you. There's just all those things that you develop playing the indoor game and bringing them outdoors. It changes the way we kind of look for talent. You want guys now who can do both of those things. Trevor Baptiste was already maybe one of the best face-off men ever just playing field lacrosse, if not the best face-off man ever just playing field lacrosse. His time in the NLL, and you see it in this PLL game now, where he's like tiptoeing, he's tiptoeing around the crease and throwing twisters around goalies. Like, he was not doing that at Denver. That was not part of his game at Denver. But the way that the box game has, elevated his ability to be part of the offense, to shoot, to catch a pass in tight, handle, and, show off some skill while he finishes, and be a threat like that. Like, that comes from playing more indoor ball. And I think Americans are kind of getting wise to just how much adding the indoor experience can elevate your field game. That it's not like, well, if I play that one, it means I'm going to be good at that one, but it's not going to help me here. Like, no, the two skill sets really do complement each other.
Yeah, you're seeing that, and I love seeing the game through that lens of seeing a player that's great at both. Because you do get the ones that are in the box, and you're like, that is a box player. You can very much tell they would look awkward out on the field. But yeah, I do want to have maybe the media discussion on the NLL and the college game too. I mean, there's things that I want to see be done better, like getting the game more in front of people where it's not behind these paywalls. And the NLL does some things where I'm like, what are you guys doing with this stuff? I'm just interested in your coverage from a media perspective, right? And a personality in the sport. What could be done better, and what can even, I guess, be plausible to be done better as we go ahead? Again, you'd love to wave that magic wand and have 50,000 people sitting in an LLL arena and all that stuff or whatever. But what do you think, like, from the media side in lacrosse right now?
I think the one thing I would love to see happen, or one thing I would love to progress towards, is, and it sounds like it's so simple, but it just hasn't been, is just stagger the goddamn games on Saturdays. You're going to get that first weekend, whether it's week 1, week 2, whatever, where we look and there's 4 or 5 games that everybody's fired up to watch. These are, 5 top 20 matchups, and they're all Saturday and they're all at noon.
Could be on Friday.
Yeah. Just give me Saturday at noon, give me Saturday at 3, give me Saturday at 6 or something like that. But it's challenging because some of that is the nature of TV deals. Some of that is the nature of college coaches who don't want to give up the Saturday at noon time slot. They don't want to play at another time. They want to be seen then. That's what, so like, it's there's a collective of an effort and a buy-in from kind of the landscape as a whole, I think probably needs to happen to maybe help some of that along. But I think a staggering of the schedule would be great. I say it all the time after that, like when that last game wraps up, the one that started at like 3:30 and it's 6 or something like that. And I'm like, man, I would kill for the college football West Coast, like Oregon Stanford game at 10 o'clock Eastern, the lacrosse version of that. You know what I mean?
You know what the coaches are going to say. They're saying at 8:30 p.m., if we get a 7:30 or 8:30 start, we're going to be done by 10:30. Now we got to drive back home or what have you. It's like setting our whole week back. But it's tough because I get it, but.
Yeah, I think, if you want the sport in front of more people, you can't play all your best games at the same time. You just, it's tough. You want to stagger those games. Maybe there's at the pro level, particularly for the PLL, something I would love to see, NLL too, I guess. And it's tough because the guys have jobs, but give me some weekday games. Give me a Thursday nighter or Wednesday nighter. You know what I mean? Making that work again when these guys, I know they have work during the week and it's like it's tough to make it happen that way.
Just
but
go one time a week, take a day off and get like a Thursday game.
A Thursday night game or something like that would be I think awesome. And honestly, for some of these guys, like especially with the expanded schedule now, these guys, some of them are married, some of them have kids, but your summer now from May 9th to September 20th, you got like 2 bye weeks in there if you're an all-star. So your entire summer on the weekends, if you're married, you have kids, like it's tough. They got to be coming with you or like you're spending time away from them. It's why at times, like I have running jokes with some other media guys. When I see a pro lacrosse player post that proposal photo on Instagram, I'm like, he's going to be retired soon. Like you can't keep playing that much longer after that. His wife's not going to let him do it.
When do you think the PLL moves to home cities? I know I don't hate this from the economic standpoint of making money through sales and all this stuff and putting it around tournaments. I get it. But when do you think they move, if at all?
I think it's a when. I think it's not an if. And I would say within the next, having talked to some players and stuff who like, about what goes on kind of in player town halls with the league and state of the league kind of stuff that happens with those guys. But I think there is a push to try and have team ownership, individual team ownership in the next, call it 3-4 years, right? So you'll have we use his name because it comes up all the time anyway, but say Joe Tsai owns the California Redwoods, you know what I mean? Then that's like his team. And then you don't have the central ownership, but I would think the league couples those two events together of when you have individual team ownership, that team owner will also be responsible for team venue. And then you'll have the true home and away schedule. So Joe Tsai owns the Redwoods and they play at whatever, pick your favorite stadium in San Diego that's good for lacrosse. And that all happens at once. And then, Ryan Smith owns Utah and they play at wherever he owns in Utah and blah, 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 blah. And
I with the traveling model, but going with home arenas.
I think that's when you would also get the home and away schedule. So I think kind of the domino or the linchpin for it in my mind is the individual team owner. And when you have the individual team owners happen, and again, I'm thinking within 3, 4, 5 years that happens.
Got it.
And when that happens, then they have owner responsible for a venue and a true home and away schedule. And I think you still get in the neutral site games in there because at the end of the day, when that happens, I don't think expansion's happening. So, if you're still at 8 teams, you still got to fill all those weekends. So you still get, lucky for me, probably that Fairfield weekend in there. You get that weekend in Chicago or wherever else.
Yeah. I ended the episode with Kark on kind of a somber note, and I don't want to do that with this one, okay? Because I asked him about the colleges, right? We kind of hit a stagnant moment of maybe not having one of those larger Michigans or what have you, not add lacrosse. He didn't have the greatest outlook on when that would take place. I'm interested in your thoughts on the growing of the game at the college level team-wise.
Well, it's expensive. It costs a lot of money. I think I'm trying to remember. Kyle Hartzell coached at Texas for a number of years, coached their club team there. And I think he was talking with, I'm so sorry if it was your podcast or whoever's podcast it was, if you're listening, I'm sorry if it was you, but he was talking to somebody about it. They were like, what's it going to take to get D1 lacrosse at Texas? And he was like, just several $1 million. And you know what I mean? Like,
that's not bad.
That's a lot of money, man. You like
to a billionaire. Find a billionaire there at Texas.
Then that's like, growing the game at a level where you have a lot of schools adding it. You can't find a billionaire everywhere. You know what I mean? Maybe Texas gets lucky and does find
Indiana.
one who says they want to do it. You know what I mean? Maybe Stanford does, but like, I don't know. Like it's tough to financially see the path to it happening for a lot of places. I would love it if there was, I don't even know if the Pac-12 is really a conference anymore, but like Pac-12 lacrosse, I think would be awesome. However, whatever shape that took, but
it feels like a pipe dream more and more, doesn't it?
I'm trying to take baby steps and just get a 6 team in the ACC.
That would be nice. Let's get an automatic qual. Yeah.
Give me an AQ in the ACC, one miracle at a time.
Well, Tech or I say Tech, Virginia Tech or Boston College would be nice.
BC and Louisville both have dynamite women's programs.
Yeah.
BC used to have a varsity program. Clemson has a dynamite women's program. They just got, a Spalina going there, the number 1 player in the country. So
give me your one school you think could add it next. If you had to guess.
Oh man. If I had to guess, if I could magic wand it like we've been saying and just make it so, I think I would do Clemson. I think I would love it if Clemson could have it next. Clemson, Texas, Stanford, something like that.
Now we're getting like all crazy a little bit. Like this is
yeah. If I could just do it,
yeah. Just give me 10. Give me a whole SEC. I would love it.
Oregon,
one day. Yeah. Dan, anything else on the 2026 kind of first week or any other thoughts that we haven't touched on that you're excited about as we kind of roll into the first week?
I'm pumped for the D1 stuff. I do a lot of D2 and D3 coverage for USA Lax Mag with Devitt, and D3 doesn't really get going much. Salisbury plays this weekend, but they're playing Eastern, and like, I'm sorry if you play lacrosse at Eastern, but Salisbury is going to win that game by 30 goals. But D2's got some good ones out there this weekend. There's some good games out there, and I'm excited to watch Adelphi pursue a three-peat. Adelphi would have the first ever three-peat in D2 NCAA lacrosse if they do it. They're entering the preseason, obviously ranked number 1 as back-to-back reigning champions, but the Adelphi lacrosse program should get a lot more shine. Their men are going to be number 1. Their women are probably, I think, are preseason top 5. So their men and women are preseason top 5 in America. And there's a world that exists where they both win the Natty, which would be absolutely insane. And then, again with Adelphi, but Kyle Lewis, to me, again, a guy I considered for the top 50, is a player I'm excited to watch in D2. And he and like Jack Vagneri at Tufts in D3 are guys where I think you could see guys going pro from D2 or D3 in those two. I was talking to Kyle Lewis, his high school coach, and he was like, dude, in high school, we had him pegged as a Big Ten slot receiver. Like we thought he was going to be playing in the slot for Penn State or something like that. And he almost went to Penn State to play lacrosse this summer. Like he committed and everything. And then 3 days later went back to and said, I'm going to go back to Adelphi.
Why?
What's that?
Why?
When I had talked to him, he said it just felt like it didn't feel right when he did it. And he just wanted, like Adelphi was home. Those were his teammates.
Got it.
He wanted to go back and go there. But like, that's a guy who, you're talking about a midfielder who was ready to play first line midfield. ACC and Big Ten programs were coming after him to be a starting midfielder. Kid bench is 385 and is like, he is a monster of an athlete. And just like people need to, one of my favorite things to do all season is as we get like very obsessed, like we've been saying with Big Ten and ACC and stuff like that, I try and get out there and be like, find some time to watch this kid, find some time to watch that kid. And it's why I wrote that thing where I was like, every player in America has a kid on the roster who's worth buying a ticket to see. And so it's fun to find those guys around the country. Even like, look, Bellarmine, I think, is playing opening weekend. Go watch the Alley Boys, John and Joe. They're goal scoring machines. They're a ton of fun. Like everybody, so like finding those guys in the course of the year is always going to be something I'm excited about. I love doing it in D2 and D3, but in D1 too, there's always opportunities to find these guys who are diamonds in the rough, who don't get the shine they should because they're not playing at, Duke.
I want to first say I echo that statement completely. There's guys playing everywhere that are worth the price of admission 100%, man. That's a credit to the growth of the game. I know we keep pushing that goalpost further down, but we've gotten pretty far in the game and the growth of it. Yeah, I'm not going to touch on this, but we had the Xavier Arline story, which was interesting. I really like these like football crossover guys that are just dominating the headlines. I didn't really have a point on that. Do you have any Xavier Arline kind of...
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll see what Xavier can do. It's not always easy to just come back and do it. Again, like you said, missing Jordan Faison is going to be what it is. I had said, look, lacrosse is always going to be available to him. Always. Football will not. Football, the window is very limited. If he goes and decides he wants to play in the NFL and he plays for 5 years in the NFL, 6 years, whatever it is, however old he is when he decides to be done with the NFL, if the next day he calls the PLL and says, I want to play, they'll say you're signed. You're on a team. You're in. That opportunity is always going to be there for him. The NFL doesn't work like that. So, take what you can do while you can do it. But,
Fair point. Last question I got here. We've been touching on players, teams. Let's touch on coaches, coaching storylines for 26, and then I'll let you out of here. Anything that kind of jumps off the page. I was very interested in Chapati getting as far as he did, and like it kind of became more real to me. The question of like, hey, is he going to go somewhere? Richmond's got fully funded. He could stay there forever, but he's as close as ever to being a great candidate.
Anytime any job comes open, as long as he is at Richmond, the first name anybody's going to say is going to say, you know who they should hire? They should hire Chapati. He's obviously one of the best coaches in the country. A coaching storyline for me though is, it's really all like a Syracuse thing, but like, is Gary going to win a title with Syracuse as a coach? And is it, if they don't win the title, how much are people going to lay the blame at Gary's feet? As opposed to however the season unfolds, how much of it is going to be put on his shoulders. So I think there's no spotlighted team to me like Syracuse is this year with the level of expectation that they have. Where if that senior class goes through there with no championship, it'll be like if you're a guy like that, a guy like Spallina at Syracuse, and you don't win a title. When you're done there, like, and this isn't a knock on him or anybody else, but they don't talk about you the same way. They don't talk about Kevin Rice the same way they talk about guys who won a title, even though Kevin Rice is one of the best players that program's ever seen, but he didn't win a title. So like, the bar for Syracuse being as high as it is, to me, leaves an extra large spotlight on their coach as well. So the coaching storyline there of, can Gary get him to the promised land? And if he doesn't, do people turn on him there? You know what I mean? Are people looking to make a change?
Dan, this has been a great conversation. I've got you for an hour and 8 minutes, so I'm going to let you go. You put the kiddos down, but I'm sure you got some work to do. So I appreciate you, man. This has been a great conversation. Let's do a mid-season one, maybe.
I'll count me in, man. Whenever you're ready.
Love it.